Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 2. An absolute worldy finish from Mateta to draw Palace level. Listen, Eze's goal was absolutely fantastic as well this evening. Both teams with bigger fish to fry, as it were, at this point of the season. But the question that's on the back of not in the back of my mind, it's front and center, really. Are Arsenal ready for Paris Saint-Germain next week? Hit the like button, please, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're subscribing. Get the bell notification button turned on as well. And a big shout out to NordVPN, our title sponsors. You shouldn't be using the internet unless you're protected. It's as simple and it's as straightforward as that. Marketing companies harvesting your data, your internet provider knowing what you're doing, your internet bill payer can search and see everything you do, even if you're incognito. This is just about giving you security and privacy. So go check out NordVPN now. You can get a 2-year plan and 4 months free as a gift from us from the Football Terrace. Scan the QR code right about now and get that done. And of course, tonight, Liverpool pretty much crowned champions. And I actually think, listen, I think it was better that Palace didn't win tonight from a Liverpool perspective. One, it's a Wednesday night. A lot of people have got work tomorrow. And I think it's nice, someone who's watched their team win 13 league titles, it's always nice when your team wins points, wins a game, and at that moment you win the trophy. I think it'll be a nicer occasion at the weekend for Liverpool to beat Tottenham, to be crowned champions at that moment for them and their supporters. But look, it's been over for about 6 weeks now. It's been like a long and slow death for anyone who doesn't like Liverpool. Liverpool fans very close to getting their hands back on that trophy. But tonight's game was weird. It was very weird from both teams. They both went through moments in the game where there was great intensity. They played well. They created opportunities. And then they both had these lulls where you could see they had Saturday on their mind from the Crystal Palace perspective, and Arsenal firmly thinking about Paris Saint-Germain next Tuesday, the biggest game of their season. And you could argue the biggest games in the entire 5 years or so that Mikel Arteta has been at the football club. Their home leg, so important. They are sharp, that they are quick, that everybody's fit, that they get the victory. Hopefully, that from their perspective, they don't concede any goals. And the question for me really is, are Arsenal ready for that? Well, what we saw tonight is, I'm not too sure why Raheem Sterling played. I would have given the minutes to Ethan Nwaneri. He hasn't played as much recently because Saka was returned. I'm not too sure the point of Raheem Sterling starting, but he was a bit of a hindrance to Arsenal. But they started well. Very good goal from a set piece. Kivior, who has been very impressive for Arsenal as of late, comes up trumps. Excellent goal. Wonderful cross from Martinelli. Then Palace have a little bit of a pushback, get themselves, involved in the game, as it were. But I didn't really think were that great. They looked a little bit like a team that was a little bit tentative, not really getting too stuck into the match. And then from about the 25th minute until about the 35th minute, they just turned it on. They started creating chances. They scored a wonderful goal. The cross, the shot from Eze was just absolutely brilliant. I thought David Raya, and we'll get onto him in more detail, was really poor positionally. He was worried more about the players in front of him. He wasn't looking at where the flight of the ball was. If he'd have positioned himself better, maybe he could have got there. But overall, very good goal. But then Arsenal responded. They got themselves back into the lead. Excellent play from Irian Timber and Trossard, who scores another goal for them. A slight deflection, but a well-worked goal. And then I felt Arsenal were largely in control in the second half. Bukayo Saka comes on, has a good shot saved. They score a third, but the ball did go out of play. But Arsenal looked relatively comfortable. Then Palace made some changes. I'm just looking at who it was. Hughes that came on, Sarr, Mateta in the 80th minute. But they brought those first subs on around the mid-60s. And from the mid-60s onwards, Palace were just pressing harder. They were really pushing Arsenal. And you could just see this tentative nature from Arsenal where they didn't want to get too stuck in. And I felt the subs that came on, they were out there trying to get a little bit of fitness, try and keep themselves sharp ahead of the game Saturday. And Then another really poor mistake. We've had 2 in a week now from Saliba. And as football fans, we ain't used to it. As football fans, this man is normally so ice cold, so calm, so brilliant on the ball. And he just sloppily gives it away. Mateta then picks up the ball. The chip is just out of this world. You can do nothing but applaud it, nothing but congratulate it. The form that Mateta has been in. You know, his first 4 or 5 months in England were atrocious. The level he's gone to since has been amazing. Phenomenal strike. Excellent goal. And Crystal Palace probably could have won it at the end as well. A really good block. I think it was some Kivior that stopped the ball from going in. They will now go into their semi-final with a little bit more confidence. Their previous 2 games on the road have been pretty poor in terms of performances and results. So they'll be a little bit buoyed by that. When it comes to Arsenal, how will Arsenal be feeling? I want to know how Arsenal fans are feeling about this, because I do see it both ways. Now, I have to keep the same energy as when I'm talking about Tottenham and Man United, that I could see a lack of intensity at times. I could see, especially when there was 8 minutes of time added on, there was no way that was Arsenal trying to win the game at the end. If you got the opening, you took it, but you weren't breaking your backs to try and win the game. And you always have to take that into consideration, I think. I understand that it's the 13th draw of the season, which is nowhere near good enough for Arsenal. Nowhere near good enough on any planet. And it's the 9th time in the Premier League this season that Arsenal have been leading and gone on to draw. And that is an area overall that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have got to solve going into next season. You cannot win a Premier League title doing that, by and large. You just, the likelihood is so low. The last 3 games where it's happened, look, I can compartmentalize it, because we could all see that the title race was over a few weeks ago. Arsenal are clearly prioritizing the Champions League. So maybe you've got to look at those things separately. But it's certainly an area that I understand why Arsenal fans are being frustrated, because they've seen it 9 times now this season where they've led and end up drawing these games. I do think adding a new number 9, like a Victor Gyökeres, an Osimhen, and Isak, they're the names that are kind of linked to Arsenal. That will be the big game changer in this, because just having someone that on a more regular basis can kill games off with goals is going to be key. But in terms of the Paris Saint-Germain game, look, it's very simple. It looks like everybody that was on course to be fit or was going to be available will be as of right now, for you, touching wood. In that game, though, the concentration levels are going to have to be so much better than they were tonight. The sharpness has got to be there. Saliba with the sloppy mistake, as we mentioned. I thought David Raya was a problem all night, sort of second-guessing everything, missing crosses, poor clearances, bad with the ball at his feet on a couple of occasions. Raya tonight, listen, he's been a fantastic signing for Arsenal. I'm not saying he's a bad goalkeeper, but I just saw a few Arsenal players, and maybe it's the nerves of next week. Maybe it's the fact that they might be more nervous about hurting themselves or something going wrong between now and then. Because, of course, we saw a different Arsenal against Real Madrid home and away to which we saw against Everton and we saw against Brentford as an example. But they will have to be a lot sharper. They'll have to be a lot more dynamic and cut out those mistakes. They really, really will. But as ever, I want your thoughts and I want your opinions in the comments section below. Dev here says Arsenal not even getting 75 points. It doesn't matter from this stage, though. The points total is irrelevant. And we spend too much time focusing on points totals and ignoring game state. Arsenal, everybody said, including you, Dev, I remember your comments when they drew with Nottingham Forest that it was over and it was done. I think your exact words in the comment were, we're champions now. So it doesn't really matter whether Arsenal picked up 1 more point or 30 more points from that stage. In the grand scheme of things, it's for this season, it's Champions League or bust for them. You know, if they win the Champions League, their points total coming second, they'll have wanted to have won the league, but it will become almost inconsequential, the points total, if they do that. If they don't, the season will be scrutinized. There'll be a lot of pressure on going to another level next year. I think they're already lining up the signings to do that anyway, but I don't think the points total is overly important. The same as the points total that Liverpool finish it on. You've had teams that are probably going to have more points than your title winners this year. Doesn't mean those teams were better. This team is winning the league title. You know, it is what it is. Ray says the league is awful. From an entertainment's point of view, it has been a poor year. Let's go some more of these comments here. This is from Highbury Ultra 13. He says, Crystal Palace were good value for a draw. Thought our whole defence was tentative today. Even Raya, not concerned as long as no new injuries. We had the same convo after Brentford. It's hard to get up for the games. Listen, I agree. It is hard when you're not really playing for anything. Arsenal were going to make the top 5. And this is the irony in this. A lot of the Arsenal fans who do up the whole Standards FC, every win, every point matters, they're also the same individuals that say 2nd and 17th for the same thing because you haven't won the league. So it doesn't really matter if you come 3rd. Your season next year will not be impacted at all by that. You could argue there's a little bit more money to win, a little bit more money for coming 2nd over 3rd, but I still think you'll come 2nd this year. What are you clear of the team in 3rd right now? You've got a 6-point gap over Manchester City on the same amount of games. With 4 games left to go, you'll probably pick up enough points, if we're being absolutely honest, to maintain that. So, yeah, I actually wouldn't be too worried if I was an Arsenal fan. I agree. The only elements, as you say, injuries and a few players that have made some sloppy mistakes in the last couple of games, like Saliba, I would be pushing for that to go out. But I agree it was very, very tentative. Liverpool win the league, Arsenal not winning the Champions League, Spurs win Europa, and I will be here for the absolute meltdown. I'm sure you will, Sean. You're always here, and I appreciate your support. Congratulations, I've said many times, on Liverpool winning the league, my friend. Win Sunday, 15 points ahead. Shambolic Arsenal is what Shawnee says here. Lack of concentration as no importance. Can't play like that against PSG. Outlier mistakes by Saliba. Kivior has been great. Onwards. Come on, you gooners. Yeah, this is the point of today. As frustrated as some Arsenal fans will be, you go and beat Paris Saint-Germain 2-0 on Tuesday. There won't be a single Arsenal fan that will think about or care about today's result ever again. They really won't. So there is a wider and a bigger picture here. I agree. 6 years in the job, 800 million spent, and must spend minimum 250 in the summer, and has 1 FA Cup. UCL is a must win. Teams that has Arsenal has challenges are lucky. Look, I mean, they haven't spent 800 million. I think it's about 650 million pound that's been spent. So we have to be accurate with that. Yes, they have to spend another 250 or so in the summer. But had Arsenal won 6 Premier Leagues on the bounce, they would still have to spend another 250 million pound this summer. You always have to spend, win, lose, or draw. So for me, that's inconsequential. It's inconsequential. I mean, January just gone and this summer combined, Man City are about to drop another 500 million. You're a Chelsea fan. You've dropped £1 billion on first team players. You're probably going to drop another 200 to 300 billion this summer. And you've done that in half the time. That element is not an issue, is not a problem. You are right, though, that the last 2 years, since they've been in that title challenging form, the standards for Arsenal are to be judged now on the trophies they win, now that the rebuild and the squad have been kind of built and put together, and they haven't got over the line. There's no doubt about it. But every single Arsenal fan has called that out. I haven't met a single gooner that has said last season and this season so far are good enough. So, yeah, you're right in that element, and Arsenal fans agree with you, I think. I hope Saliba is just getting his mistakes out. We should still be winning this game, and annoyed we didn't stamp this game out, I think you mean. But I think we still beat PSG. It's really interesting when those mistakes happened today. It got me thinking back to my old sport. And in my old sport, there was the kata sections where people did like traditional kata in the gis, but we also were part of the sport I was in. We did something called XMA, which was extreme martial arts, which was a very fun element of our sport, where it was kind of a mixture. There was a little bit of gymnastics involved, but it was kind of martial arts, performance, and music. It was really, really fun. It may not sound it when I explain it, but it's very, very fun. And I had a friend. She was one of the best. Her name was Lisa, and she was one of the best bow staff experts in the world. And if we were close to one of the major tournaments, the French Open, the World Championships, the British Open, the US Open, we were close to those tournaments and we were at maybe more of a local thing, or we were training in the week, we should just taper down training in the week before the big tournament so everybody was sharp. if she was dropping her bow whilst practicing, I've never seen someone smile so much. And when I was a little younger, I never got it. When I got a little bit older and sort of could speak to her more on a level, I was like, Lisa, why do you smile when you make mistakes so close to the big tournaments? Everybody else gets stressed out by it. And her view was always, I'm getting it out. Her mindset was, I'm getting it out the way now. So I know it's not going to happen at the US Open, at the Worlds, or whatever it may be. And she had a great record of winning major medals at those tournaments. And it always stuck with me. And it was only tonight when I saw those mistakes, I just thought, maybe it is best they're getting out the way now as opposed to next week. And maybe that's what the mindset will be in that Arsenal dressing room right now. But yeah, I hear you, Abraham. I hear you that you cannot be making those mistakes next week. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. That will certainly need to improve. This year says, when Liverpool lost to Plymouth, everyone glossed over it because it was a single bad game. As soon as it's Arsenal, you've bottled it. Look, I think, well, listen, certain analysis will be like that, and other people won't. I think that Arsenal have had a poor season this year in the Premier League by the standards of challenging for the league title. They fell off from the title race too soon for a team of their caliber, a side that I think's excellent. So again, you've got to understand my wordings here. I'm saying poor based on those standards. Fantastic compared to my shit club this season. Astronomical compared to Tottenham. Alien levels compared to Southampton. But in the prism and the context and the framing of a title challenging team is what I'm referring to. Excuse me. But rivals are always going to say you've bottled it no matter what's gone on. You guys were not tipped to be in the semi-finals of the Champions League. If PSG, that everybody is saying are going to beat you, they'll still say it's bottling. Just it's par for the course, mate. It's always going to happen. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. Liverpool fans shouldn't care, but just know United and Spurs fans finishing where they will be more talked about than Liverpool. Remember that is what Curtis says here. Arsenal are bottling against a team that hasn't played anyone yet. I like that's a good bit of banter. That's actually pretty good. I like that. Merino White injured and not in the squad today. Is Merino injured? I didn't know. I wonder why he didn't come on. I didn't even check Arsenal's bench today. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know he was injured. Yeah, that will be a miss. And I know that Trossard scored today, but that was one element of the play that I thought Arsenal missed. The ball, what he's good at doing, Merino, and I think it's his DM qualities, because DMs often are quite good at holding the ball up, especially when they have to receive it from the back line, is the ball can often go into him and players can make runs off him, come in. It was a little bit with no focal point centrally, and then Raheem Sterling just being Raheem Sterling. It did make Arsenal a little bit lopsided in that regard, but I didn't know that he was injured. Dinesh here says, evening, Terry. On the 25th of May, it's 20 years since the Champions League. Sorry, 25th of May. He's 20 years since winning the Champions League. On the same day, we'll have hands on the Premier League. I don't know who you're talking about. I honestly don't know what you mean. I'm missing something here. I'm really sorry. I don't quite know what you mean. 20 years since... Oh, 20 years since you guys, Istanbul, you'll be getting the Premier League. Right, sorry, I get it now. I get it. I get what you mean. Ready for PSG, bottling further, Terry. Also, by that, Shanti, you think Arsenal are the favourites to knock PSG out? Remember, the banter don't work if you say they're the underdogs and then they go out. You got to get it right. You got to... Do you know what I mean? I'll give you an example, right? If you're out with your boys and your mates, he's a young lady that he likes, and he goes, oh, I'm going to go and talk to her. If you all say you're never getting a number, she's going to reject you, and he says, yeah, it's probably true. I probably won't get it. And then he walks up to her, asks for a number, she says no. Do you know, you and your, like, no one laughs because it's all what we all expected. If, for instance, you expect him to, he'll get a number, he always does, and she says no, oh, it's funny when he doesn't, because it's against what you expect. So come on, at least do the banter right. Come on, let's touch some grass. Let's get it done correctly. Come on now. Take down a pen and paper and we'll teach you. We'll teach you how to do it. We'll teach you how to do it properly. But there we go. We don't even have to beat Spurs. No, but listen, Douglas, you were champions 6 weeks ago. Where's this come from? You guys, I know you guys were sitting in the tree as leopards with Hassan, but you've been champions for ages. You've been champion. By the way, someone put Saka's name in the comment section there. By the way, what a save from Henderson to stop it going to 3-1 when Saka shot. Woo! One of the saves of the season. I was watching Henderson tonight and I was thinking to myself, we got rid of him and David De Gea and we have Bayender and Onana. Fucking hell. Sometimes in life, you men will go through this. You'll see your friends do it. Maybe some of you will do it. They might have, there's a phrase that's used. It's probably considered sexist now, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's this phrase that, why go out for hamburgers when you got steak at home? Some men will leave steak for a hamburger. And then you're like, why, bro? Why'd you do that for? That makes sense. It's kind of what United did with those goalkeepers. Great save from Henderson to tonight. Because again, if that goes in, the conversation right now is probably going to be very, very different indeed. We've got Brandon and Connor coming on the show with us now to have their say. Welcome back, gents. Connor, talk to me tonight. Another weird game in the atmosphere. What did you make of it? Does it give you any concerns for PSG? And are you overly concerned by the result in itself, mate? Let's give it.
Yeah, I think the way to describe today, Terry, was it was a very bang average performance, to put it bluntly. It was very clear and evident. I mean, listen, to break it down, first and foremost, a great set-piece goal between Odegaard and Kivior. No Palace defender was marking Kivior, so I expected him to put that in the back of the net, but very good header nonetheless, and a good assist from Martin Odegaard. And then the goal we conceded from Eze was, again, no one was marking him. You know, he was left there all on his own, so he had all the time in the world that he wanted. Ricocheted off the ground a bit, then went into the back of the net. What can you do? And then Trossard, Trossard was actually probably our best attacker today, just for the decency of the goal. But overall, we were just not at the races today. And obviously, Mateta's goal. It was very clear and evident that the players were not 100% there today. I think the only ones I can really take away, I mean, Thomas Partey, I thought was very good today on the ball. I think Timber looked quite good as well. And obviously Kivior, very good header as well. But apart from that, our defence was very switched off today. It was very lackluster. The players didn't look as involved as you'd think they'd be, which I'm quite disappointed with because I find that quite unprofessional. I know this game doesn't really mean anything. I know the league's practically done unless Liverpool do an absolute madness and lose all their games. But it seemed very unprofessional for me today. And I'm actually a little bit disappointed in this sense because I'm like, come on, at least stand your ground and think, all right, I mean, I'm not happy with second. I want the Premier League, but at least say, yeah, stand your ground. Let's just get second at least. Make ourselves look a bit proud. But I'm very disappointed today because I think we could have at least got something out of today. But hey, it is what it is. And I got to keep it honest and real with you. I mean, I got to say what Saliba done for that mistake, and as well with Odegaard. If Saliba does that against PSG, against Dembele, we saw what Dembele was like against Martinez and was it Pau Torres? You know, he's fast, he's dangerous. You don't make errors like this. So, and this is why I like having Gabriel there, because I think Gabriel settles Saliba a lot as well. You can see Saliba does get bored. I think he is one of them ones where he can get bored in games. So he likes to mess around a little bit. And I think he gets a bit too excited and he got caught off guard. And it was a fantastic goal from Mateta. So we can't be having these errors next Tuesday. And the reason I like to have these kind of performances, and especially leading up to a game on Tuesday, you want to have a good performance, whether it doesn't mean anything or not. You want to have a good performance leading up to a big game like we're going to have next Tuesday. So listen, yes, does this game mean anything in hindsight? No. And like you said, Terry, if we have a good win against PSG next week, no one's going to remember this game. But you know that you do have to take little picks and bits and pieces out of it and think it is disappointing in the way that we did turn up today. Raheem Sterling, we may as well have had 10 men on the pitch today. He's fucking useless. I've never seen a more useless loan at Arsenal in a long while. You may as well have 10 men. Absolutely offered nothing today apart from getting absolutely tackled left, right, and centre off the ball. But individually, I think Thomas Partey was all right today. Yeah, Timber was good. Kivior, good header for the goal, and Trossard, obviously, good goal as well. But disappointing, and it was very much it was a very basic performance, and you could see today, and I knew it from the get-go that the players wouldn't be fully on it today. I knew it, but it's a bit disappointing, unprofessional. But like you said, Terry, if we have a good result against PSG next Tuesday, no one will remember it. But I hope that this isn't a sign of things to come, and we can have the same performance that we had against Madrid against PSG. But what can you do?
Yeah. No, listen, I understand that, and I don't love Arsenal like you do, so my view on it is always going to be.
Terry? You shouldn't love Arsenal.
There's a lot of rumors, bruv, and it's maybe one day I'll come out of the closet. It's we know we're not in a world where that's acceptable yet. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, one day, maybe in the future, if I campaign, we'll get those conversion rights made legal. But no, look, I think, but more than I think, do you think you will be sharper and you will be more professional when you come up against Paris Saint-Germain? And I get the disappointment, but what does your gut tell you? Does your gut tell you that this time next week, well, it's actually Tuesday, so in 6 days' time, do you think you'll be sitting here having watched a professional, sharp, relatively mistake-free performance, or do you genuinely have concerns that there could be hangover into that game?
I always had that idea in my head that the players wouldn't be fully on it today, like I said. How we played against Madrid, I have the utmost confidence that we can make it to the final, which, me, Terry, I'm very, very critical of my team. I'm never normally this confident, but there is no way that this team cannot push to that final after those two performances against the current European champions. And, I've seen people out there making statements about, but this player was there and they didn't have this player in Madrid. They didn't have this player. It was Real Madrid. It wasn't no sideline La Liga team that were in the bottom half. This was Real Madrid, and we still managed to go ahead and beat them. If this Arsenal team can do that, they can beat PSG, and they know how much their season is riding on this competition. If they think that they can go out and do what they've done tonight against PSG, which I don't think they will at all, that's definitely not on their minds. They know how much this competition now means, not just to the season, but to Arsenal Football Club as a whole. I know for a fact, and I like to think for a fact, and I think we're actually going to, early prediction, I think we're going to win on Tuesday minus today's performance. They know how much this means. And if they manage to mess it up, there's nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to hide.
I hear that. The reason why I asked that question is just, maybe it's my age and I remember it. Liverpool's last 4 or 5 games of the Premier League season in 2005 weren't particularly great. They weren't way off the top 4, but they had a poor season. But once they got themselves into that Champions League final, it became more about what they were trying to do. Man United in 2017 with Jose Mourinho, once we got ourselves, I think it was after the first leg, I think we had a good result in the first leg of the semi-finals, we basically threw the remaining Premier League games. And I remember it, we put our eggs into that basket. And the reason why I say that is that your games, the last 2 or 3 Premier League games you've played, for me, just remind me of the games that Liverpool and Man United played in those moments, if that makes sense. And listen, for your perspective, you're going to hope that the result ends the same, that you go on to win it. I just don't think you're going to be that lethargic. It was even like your press today. Your press was kind of non-existent. Yeah. And that last 8 minutes, when that 8 minutes went up, any other time, you guys would have pinned them back for 8 minutes. But it was just, I'm sitting there as a fan of football, just watching it going, someone try and fucking score, just to give us a little bit. Yeah. But you could tell no one was trying. It was like, we'll both take a draw now and move on.
And that's why I'm saying you've got to now, just to shut me up, you go out there on Tuesday and really do nail down a good performance on Tuesday, whether it's a 2-0 or so what, So like I said, I'm not going to ruin today and pick everything apart. This player was shit. Because listen, it wasn't fun to watch today. I mean, it really wasn't. But, I like to think, maybe they're conserving energy for next week. And I'm not really one that likes to make excuses, but I'm riding on this Champions League like everyone else is. So just give me a fantastic performance on Tuesday and I will shut up and you won't hear anything from me. But if we're talking on today, and as in right here, right now, I'm a bit disappointed in the way we've played. But hindsight, let's look to next Tuesday. That matters more. The league's done.
I hear that. Bran, how do you feel about it, mate? Obviously not a great result, the 13th draw of the season for you. But is it all about next week? Is today just more of a dead rubber, or is it important to get those performances in? How do you see it, bro? Oh. The Wi-Fi is the Wi-Fi working? How bad that delay is. That's a long delay.
It's a long delay.
Man's in Mars, bruv. Man's in Mars. What's going on?
I'm kind of in between, Tel.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Right, cool. The only thing I would say is, obviously in the build-up or in the lead-up to the Real Madrid games, we didn't have great performances against Everton. We didn't have a great performance against Fulham. Both of them games ended in draws, and we still went on and slapped Real Madrid. So I don't think you can really read too much into today's game as like a build-up to Tuesday. I think different competition, different opposition, different way of playing. You know, again, we're at home where we should be high on confidence in that competition because we have the second best defensive record in the competition as well. You know, we just beat Real Madrid, as Connor pointed out. So in terms of confidence, I don't really read too much into it in today's game. But what I would say is I'm also disappointed because there's one thing losing out a league title that you should have won this season, let's be honest. Because, you know, aside from the fact that we've been competing with Man City for the last 2 years, now that they've fallen off, we was expected to win the league this season. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Liverpool going to win the league. We knew that for about the last 5-6 weeks anyway, under a new manager as well. But the very least that I expect is for Arsenal to finish second at least. And I look at the remaining fixtures, you know, 4 games left. We've got some tough games. We've got Bournemouth at home. We've got Newcastle as well. We've got to go to Anfield as well. There's 3 tough games out of the 4. I know we've got Southampton on the last day. But when you look at City's fixtures, for example, they've definitely got easier fixtures than what we have as well. So today's disappointing from the aspect that I want to at least finish second. You know, it's been a bit of a poor season in the Premier League. I think today is another one of the examples of, you know, Arsenal, or should I say, the story of Arsenal in the Premier League this season. As you just said, 13 draws this season. You know, when you're going for a league title, draws hurt you more than losses, even because we've lost 1 less game than Liverpool this season, and look at how far ahead, what the points total is, and the gap between the 2 teams. And it's all down to them draws. You know, it's all down to us dropping points consistently. And I really think that it highlights just how important it is that next season Arsenal are much better, not just in the attacking phases and in the attacking areas of the pitch, but we have to be better in both boxes. You know, we can't be doing this sloppiness like what we see tonight from Saliba. I said all season that David Raya, for me, looks like he's coming a little bit too far off of his line, and eventually he will get lobbed. And that happened tonight. You know, I know that's probably a tactical thing from the manager, but I just kind of look at it and think, are we getting a little bit overconfident playing out from the back now? Are we becoming... Because so at times I see David Raya and he's almost like playing centre-back position. And it's just like, is there any need to come that far out of your goal? If we do lose the ball, or if there is a mistake, then there is the potential there for you to be lobbed. And like I say, you got lobbed tonight. But as a whole, right? Disappointed with the performance, disappointed with the Premier League season, but I'm not going to read too much into it because I still think we can go and beat PSG on Tuesday. I still think Arsenal can make the final of the Champions League. In fact, I don't think we must, because that's all we've got left now. And unfortunately,
I hear that.
We're in that phase now where we have to start winning trophies. The manager himself has said that.
And you're bang on. And the manager has said it. And this is where, again, Connor has probably been one of the best Arsenal fans I've come across at breaking it down. Praise Arteta for the rebuild and getting you to be in a team that could win the trophies. Now he's being judged as the manager as whether or not he can get you over the line. I just think that's fair. It's what most Arsenal fans I speak to think and feel. On the draws this season, I agree. That needs to be addressed. And the way you're going to address that is by signing Gyökeres. But signing a player like that, I think, turns... If you had Gyökeres this season, or any top-level striker, maybe if you played a Moreno as striker from earlier on in the season, I don't know. But if you had a top-level striker, I think if you look at these 13 draws you've had, I don't think it's a crazy claim to say 7 of them are wins. And if 7 of them become wins, that's 14 extra points.
Do you know
the league different? So it's you are addressing that, but I don't think that can be addressed by coaching, by improving a player or two. I think that's purely about going out into the transfer market
100%.
and buying better.
100%.
The only other thing that I would say is I'd love to. I don't actually know this, but I'd love to know how many of them draws have come from winning positions as well.
9.
Because
9.
9 of them. So
9 of them.
that's over half of them that have come from Arsenal being in winning positions. So although we have the best defensive record in the league, it shows that we also need to be better in terms of
and 2 of them were nil, and 2 of them were 0-0s. So 2 of them were 0-0s, and 9 of them you were leading. Only 1 of them you've come from behind to draw. So it's more firepower. More firepower almost certainly fixes that next season, in my view.
I agree. I saw Yokeres' free kick the other day. Like, to get him in, man. I just get the money done, sorted. I saw a tweet actually that apparently Arsenal invited his agent out to tonight's game. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't read into Twitter sources very much, but he seems like a very clear candidate at the moment. I take him in a heartbeat, Terry. He would elevate our attack to a new level. Completely.
What about Rasmus?
Oh yeah, I'll say yeah. Do you know what? It would be Arsenal, wouldn't it? Take a young player that's not doing too well, see if we can improve him. I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be Terry, I just wanted to join for one.
Mikel Moreno is going to be a better striker than Rasmus at any point.
I know he would. Terry, I just wanted to join in one thing. I'm looking at I obviously I'm in a few group chats and I'm looking at Twitter. I see a few Arsenal fans are saying, "Oh, this doesn't matter. We can turn it on when we get against PSG." I think that's just a bad mentality to think, because I feel like before you go into a big game like that, you can't be saying, "Oh, okay, we drew against Paris, we made changes, but our defender Saliba or whoever, they can just turn it on," which might be true.
Patrick,
but I just think
what was the result before we beat Real Madrid 3-0?
No. I'm just saying.
No. What was the result? Do you know? We drew to Everton. What was the result before we beat PSG?
Yeah, but you can't say that way. This is a semi-final. You know, this is a semi-final, right?
You know what it's called,
this is a semi-final.
Patrick, you know what it's called? It's called priorities. In life, when you have priorities,
I just think
on your priorities.
I just think personally, especially in a semi-final, people are saying, "Oh, it's okay. We can be taking these draws and we go on and win." Yes, you can. You did it once, but doesn't mean now in a semi-final. Do you know what a semi-final is? You're going to the final. It's the way that some people are saying that, "Oh, it's okay, let it go," even if the keepers are not putting enough effort or the players are not putting enough effort. It's okay as long as you go with in the PSG game, we'll turn it up like that. I don't know. I just feel like a better mentality.
You're mistaken, bro. You're mistaken. Priorities number 1 is the Champions League is the competition we can still win. There's 3 games.
Okay, so can I ask you something?
There's 3
so
games
you're happy
left.
with the draws? You're happy with the draws?
Let me finish. There's 3 games left. I think there's 5 games left in the Premier League, right? The 5 games left in the Premier League have to be managed to a level where we're obviously competitive, trying to win whatever games we can win, but at the same time, not trying to get ourselves overexerted or injured or get players, put them in bad situations. So today, we've clearly seen Saka and Moreno arrested. You've seen that the way that the team was playing. I do think at times they weren't going at their full 100% as they always do.
And you as a fan, you say that's good.
The way I can tell people are not bothered is because you can tell by the level of investment by the fans. The stadium, you can tell by how they're reacting to some of the situations, how when Crystal Palace would score their goals, the reaction from the players was like, "You know what? We still got this." I think even to the last minute, they believed they could have nicked a win. But if they don't, as long as they don't lose and they get the point, they're like, "You know what? It is what it is."
Well, Egal, I agree with you on this. If you look at PSG yesterday when they played Nantes, they were completely different side to what they usually were. They drew 1-1 and they didn't really have that great of a game. So maybe they were doing the same thing as us. That's why I'm saying.
But is there different that PSG won the league already?
Patrick, the thing where I can agree with your point is, if we don't turn up on Tuesday, I don't want none of this. Oh, but Palace was just staying fit. So I do agree, but I also agree with Egal on the fact of that. Yeah, maybe the players didn't want to go all out, which I don't blame them because they don't want to get injured. They don't want to you know, they don't want to go get too lethargic. So I can definitely see it on both perspectives. But what matters now for Arsenal is that, yes, today wasn't good, and people can say, yeah, we take the draw, but PSG is more important, which it is. But you've got to go out on Tuesday and give it 10 out of 10s like you did against Real Madrid.
I think you're going to see this all over the place because Inter lost today. Arsenal drew.
Excuse me.
You've seen PSG drew. It's very common for teams that are in the later stages of the Champions League to see their focus shift slightly.
Yeah, look, I think I don't necessarily think, Patrick, I don't necessarily think it's bad mentality, because if we break it down, they can't win the league and they're going to make the Champions League positions next year. So putting all their eggs and putting all their real energy into the tournament they can win, there is an argument to say that's the elite mentality, because imagine putting all your energy into a game that isn't going to change your season, and a player rips his hamstring, this happens, that happens. They would also be ridiculed. Why are you running? Like, if they were running around like headless chickens today, I think people would say, what are you doing? It's a nothing game. It's a dead rubber, especially if somebody got injured. So I see the argument for both sides. I do get your point, Patrick, that the turning it on and the turning it off thing, but we have seen this a lot. We have seen this a hell of a lot before. I mentioned earlier when United won the Europa League with Jose in 2017. We saw it with Liverpool in 2005 when they went on to win the Champions League. I'm sure if we went back and look at Chelsea, I'd love to go back and look at Chelsea's 2 Champions League winning seasons to look what they did in the build up to the semi-finals and final, because they weren't in title races them seasons at all. I feel like this has been done before by multiple teams when you're only in one. Again, if City right now, it'd be different if City were in the race for the Champions League now in this situation, because you're fighting to win enough points to get into the Champions League. So I think if Arsenal was 6 to 7 points worse off and they were in that top 4 race, I would completely agree with you. Like, why would you just prioritize the Champions League? You may not win it, and then you're not in it next year if you miss out. I just think that I've seen too many examples of teams do it before for me to sit here and say it's the completely wrong approach.
I see examples where it's draws. Look, let me give you a real-time example today. Inter lost to AC Milan. They lost to AC Milan. Friggin', what is it? 3-0 today in a Coppa Italia semi-final, because they're more focused on Barcelona in a week's time. Like, today? why are we today?
They played yesterday ago.
They lost today 3-0.
No, today. They played today. They played tonight.
So when people are talking about mentality, understand the mentality of trying to win the major honor that you can actually achieve, or something that's in your way that might be an obstacle. What's your bigger focus?
But are Inter not top of the table and they might win the league?
No, but they lost the cup.
Yeah, it's a cup.
I know they lost the cup, but I'm saying overall, they know there's another cup for us. It's not just you guys, all your eggs are in one basket.
See, this is what you're doing. Your argument goes to shit. Your argument goes to shit the moment you're not consistent. Because if you're consistent, you would have said it doesn't matter. You try to win everything. But what you've just done, what you've just said, you've proven us right, because you've said they have other things they can win, so they're going to maybe focus on that. So aren't we saying the same thing?
No, not really. But look, what I'm trying to say is it's the level of, like, let's say your fan base, for instance, right? And this season, obviously, there's nothing to win but the Champions League. I get it. But the thing is, I was like looking at the level of their happiness. It's as if, we'll do this. And I've seen them. They're like, we do this. Who cares? We'll go and turn it on. I'm just saying it's a risky game, because if you want to turn it on.
When you say it's risky, though, I need to ask you a question. What's risky about rotating the starting 11 today and not playing with maximum intensity? What makes that risky, in your opinion?
I don't know. I just think, like, sometimes winning is a mentality. I just think, like, even the way they conceded today, you can actually tell that, so they don't really care. Like, usually if it's a game, like, look at how, if you can look at what Saliba, like the Saliba issue. Go ahead.
But this is our first Champions League semi-final in years. I mean, like I said earlier when I joined, I wasn't happy. It was a very bang average performance, but you do have to look at it.
So you were not happy.
Of course, I wasn't happy with today, but I have to look at it in a sense of, we have one of the biggest games of our how many years next week. I can't sit here and say it doesn't not make sense to be a bit less full on. I think imagine if today, say for example, Patrick, I don't know, Declan Rice were to get injured because we were playing all out, going for it, bang, and to get 3 points for, let's be honest and real, for a game to a league that's already been won. So it does. Yeah. And maybe if you're looking into in a sense of the fans are celebrating it. Oh yeah, but it's, we got the Champions League next Tuesday. Some fans, especially online for us, can be very over the top. Is how I like to.
I don't think anyone's gonna give a shit if we finish second.
Exactly. If we beat PSG next week, no one's gonna care.
No one's gonna give a shit.
I actually don't. Again,
Chelsea finished 6th, won the Champions League.
If you get beat, guys, by PSG next week, are any of you really going to put it down to not playing tonight with full intensity?
No.
So if you get
I don't think we're going to get beat. I think we're going to go put them to the sword. I think this game is going to be a distraction for PSG, because if they think they're going to look at this game and get anything from what we're going to play, I don't think
PSG are going to do that. Brandon, what are you trying to say, mate?
I would say, in terms of I actually think we would probably have seen a better performance if we rotated more.
Maybe, yeah.
And that might not make much sense.
How much more? Raheem Sterling's on the pitch.
Well, yeah, you're saying about Raheem Sterling, but really and truly, we didn't really rotate that much. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Patrick.
We took out Bukayo Saka and we brought in Raheem Sterling. But aside from that, that was pretty much our first 11. But you're right.
Yeah.
If Declan Rice goes out there full intensity, gets injured, well, he's the engine in our midfield, and we know that against PSG, one of their strongest points is their midfield. So we're going to have to win that midfield battle, especially without Thomas Partey, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that surprised me a little bit was that Ethan Nwaneri didn't start today because he's not really had that many minutes recently. But also at the same time, when Patrick talks about mentality in that, I don't think it's a thing that comes from the manager, because the manager pretty much played our first 11 except from Bukayo Saka today. So he wanted to win. Wanting to win the game.
Okay, great.
Yeah, he wanted to win the game. It's just the players are not mentally there.
Let's be honest, Saliba made a mistake. If he doesn't make that mistake, we go on to win the game.
Yeah, but I think that Ray was making a lot of mistakes in the game, and I think that's because I think it's almost listen. That's where I think we should listen to the insight for the ex-pros that speak when they're not running their stupid agendas. And Alan Smith spoke about it tonight, and I've heard thousands of. That's an exaggeration. I've heard hundreds of pundits talk about it in the past. When you've got a game on a Saturday, but you're not really playing for anything, but you've got a big game 3 or 4 days later or a week later, it's always on your mind. It's there. You can't get rid of it. And it's normal. I don't know about any of you. If I'm doing something that's physical and I'm going on holiday in a couple of days, it sometimes gets in my mind, I better be careful. If I fucking do my ankle, if I break my leg, I can't. We naturally think like this as people. My kids, right? If we've got a really important day, we're going to a wedding, or if I've got a big day at work, I'm like, kids, you ain't running around in the garden. Why? Because if one of you cracks your head open, the day's fucked. I've got, and that's true. We do it. It's like you're sitting down on your iPads, right? I'm going to wrap you in bubble wrap until someone picks you up and looks after you because I'm busy, or we're going to a wedding. And today of all days is when I don't need a problem, right? I think it's kind of natural to think like that and be a bit protective. But I've seen so many teams do it. The reason I can't call it out is Real Madrid have won the Champions League loads in recent years. Some seasons they've been in the title race. Other years they've been winning the league at a canter. And I have seen them rotate 5, 6, 7 first-team players before a big Champions League game. And they've gone on to win the damn thing. Now, I know that's Real Madrid, and they've won it before. But the method in terms of rotation, and maybe you're right, Brandon, you do that, maybe you maintain the intensity more in the league game because it's fringe players and academy players that want to fight for a first-team place. I've just seen it so many times where teams rest players and take out the intensity before a massive semi-final a few days later. And I personally, and a few people in the comments have said this here. Where's it gone? Where's the comment? It said, I can't find it, but Terry, you're getting your Man United excuses in. But it's not a Man United excuse. The manager literally said,
I don't know about Wolves.
Can we big up Kivior? Big up Kivior. Great performance. I thought for a second he was dribbling past defenders. That was an amazing block on Eddie Nketiah. Great goal. What a header. The pace on that header, great header. And I thought overall, great performance from him. it's a shame that we didn't win the game because he would have got man of the match for me, and everyone would have been speaking about him instead of Mateta, which absolutely that man of the match came out of nowhere. He barely played, and yeah. The other players who I look at this game and say they had a shocking performance is Raheem Sterling, and I don't know why everyone's always on Odegaard's case. Like Odegaard didn't have a bad game today. It wasn't about Odegaard today. Today was about the attacking players not having the decision making. Martinelli not having the decision making. Raheem
isn't Odegaard technically an attacking decision maker?
He's a midfielder. He wasn't having the ball in the final third.
No, listen, do you know what? Listen, I won't complain.
It was Martinelli, Leandro Trossard, and Raheem
Sterling. Why do you back him so much, Egal? Everybody keeps saying Odegaard is not having a great season.
I think we're
He's literally our main creative outlet. How is he not?
No. My point is, you guys are kind of overdoing it with the Odegaard stuff. There's games where you can criticize him. There's games where you can criticize him.
How can we not criticize our
captain? No. I'm not even talking about you guys right now. There's people in the chat. There's games where you can criticize Odegaard, but I don't think today is necessarily.
It was a great assist. He had a great. Do you know what? He had a great assist for the set piece. He had a really good assist.
He got bodied for that Mateta goal.
It wasn't his fault. It was Saliba's fault.
I know it wasn't his fault.
He was part of it.
It wasn't his fault.
Egal, I know it wasn't his fault, but how many times have we seen this from Odegaard? He gets bodied far too easily. He's not.
I'm sorry, Saliba's wrong for that. Saliba made the mistake. He put his player in a dangerous situation, which he shouldn't have done. And Raya, you could say Raya's out of position also, but it's not his fault either. We're in possession, we're comfortable. Saliba made that mistake 3 times in a row. In the 3 times out of the last 4 games, he's the one. Even though we all love him and he's one of our favorite players, we have to call it as it is. Stop scapegoating players who you don't like and call out the players who you do like when they make mistakes.
I criticised Saliba today myself.
Ozil, I called him Ozil. Fucking hell.
That's a bit of a reach. That guy
has been shocking this season. Let's just have it right. He has been really, really poor this season.
Yeah, but today's not about it. Today's not example.
That's terrible, man.
Both Madrid games, he was poor too.
Yeah, he was. Thank you, Patrick. And I don't think that was.
But today's not an example of that. I feel like today people are just piling on.
But you do also realise that he turned up against Ipswich as well.
I have a question for Egal. Let me ask this. Maybe I don't watch you that much, Egal, but Egal, are you so much positive FC where you don't ever say anything? Because what I've noticed is every partner I've been on, Egal,
no, I don't think you watch my friend.
No, I respect you a lot, but the thing is, what I've noticed, Egal, is I have always seen you, even regardless your player makes a mistake. Maybe it's a good thing. You always find a positive way to spin it and make that player say, because Odegaard has been poor, but out of all of them, you seem to say, let's leave him alone.
No, because today was not on Odegaard. I feel like what we do is, if a player has had poor games 3 weeks in a row, what we do is we look for his faults when clearly today Raheem Sterling was a bigger problem. Saliba made a huge mistake that led to one of our goals that we conceded. And overall, you could even say Raya had a worse performance than Odegaard. I think if you say Odegaard is one of the worst players on the pitch, I don't think he's top 3. So I don't know why.
So is it again the fact that you're saying everywhere that people are just criticizing Odegaard?
Yeah, I'm saying it's a little bit of a pylon where it's almost like for example, I mentioned United.
In a sense, don't you think for a player,
it's the same thing at Manchester United with Onana. Even if they concede 1 goal and they win the game 2-1, they're going to get onto him for conceding that goal.
Bruno is also a point because he's a captain.
We see it with Chelsea. We see it with Chelsea. With certain players, we see it at every club. There's a player people get an opinion of. He becomes polarizing, and Odegaard's become polarizing. I get it. He's not had a good season. I'm not saying he's had a good season. I'm not saying he had a good game. I'm just saying the pylon on Odegaard after this result is a little bit extra for a player who did not have a terrible game.
Odegaard is only polarizing, Egal, right? Because we see the same things from him week in, week out this season. Yeah, he's been very poor, and you agree with that, right? But Odegaard's performance is always going to be magnified because of the captain's armband and because he's not a talker on the pitch. He's not a natural leader.
That's not
he's
true.
A guy who's supposed to lead by example, right? in his performances.
No.
And his
But Brendan,
performances have
correct
been
yourself. That's
fucking
not true.
shocking.
What's not true, Egal? Speak specifically.
To say Martin Odegaard's not a talker on the pitch is ridiculous.
Oh, come on.
He's literally one of the main people who tells people where to stand, where to go, and he leads the press by example. He's somebody, if you go to the games or you've been to the games recently, you'll see whenever you're at any game, Martin Odegaard is one of the main people telling people, instructing people where to go. He might not be loud, rah, punching people in the chest, telling them, let's do it, but he is that guy who is on the pitch, instructing people where to go and leading by telling them what to do. He's another coach on the pitch. He might not be a yeller, but he is another coach on the pitch, instructing them in a discreet way what to do.
Can I ask you a question then? Let's say you're Mikel Arteta, yeah? You come into Arsenal and there's no captain, that nobody's got the captain's armband. Who are you picking to be Arsenal captain?
Bro, I think you guys have a mistaken a captain by a certain character or a personality trait.
Egal, he asked you a question. Egal, he asked you the question.
You can be a captain. You can be a captain. There's many different types of captains. There's a captain like Declan Rice who shows natural leadership. There's a person like Gabriel Magalhaes who makes you want to go through a brick wall for him. And then there's people like Odegaard who just
those are the two
who are very nonchalant.
So who would be your captain? Who would you pick to be captain?
You.
I think you guys are doing this thing where you keep changing.
Oh my god!
Just answer the question.
Based on my criteria of a captain. Based on my criteria as a captain, I would have picked Gabriel.
There you go.
But that's based on what I view as a captain.
Okay,
now, what the manager
views
as a captain is something different.
Okay, so that's based on your criteria. So based on your criteria, where would Odegaard rank in that?
I'll probably put him third.
Well, look at that. So why are you winning the point, Egal?
But my thought process of who I would pick as a manager, as captain, is irrelevant because he is the club captain based on merit of what he performed when we started off this project, and based on that, they're not going to strip him of the captaincy.
Would you not think it's part of the fact that
they're not going to strip somebody of the captaincy unjustly? You need to be doing something you need to do something that makes you lose your captaincy. And if you want to say next season players vote and they vote Odegaard out of the captaincy or something else, fair. But we don't just go and throw around the captaincy whenever we feel like somebody's having a bad week or a bad month.
I totally agree. But you also have to accept that because he's the captain, his performances are going to be more magnified. People are going to be
and also this comes back to my agenda point where people have an agenda on Odegaard, and even when we have a draw and we have a poor performance, instead of looking at Martinelli, who messed it up, instead of looking at the pylon Raheem Sterling,
we did
instead of looking at Saliba, we want to point out a player who's not the main issue.
Can I ask a question to sort of not so much stick up for Egal because he can stick up for himself. He's a grown man. But I get your point that because he's the captain, when things go wrong, he'll also be focused on even if he wasn't like the worst player. If you guys go on to win the Champions League, which you could argue is your greatest ever achievement, and he's your captain on the field of play, even if he's a 7 out of 10, does he become a 9 out of 10 because he's the captain and get lauded as a hero? By the same logic that he's criticized massively, even when he's not bad because he's the captain. Would you both apply that in reverse if you win the Champions League?
Well, yeah, it's the same logic though, Tel. Like, for example,
I'm asking.
For example, I'm Arteta out, right? But if Arteta wins Arsenal the Champions League, build him a statue outside the stadium, for example, right? It's the same with Odegaard. If Odegaard is the captain that leads Arsenal to a Champions League the first time ever in the club's history, then laud him up for it. But also at the same time,
I wouldn't even do that.
You've got to look at his performances.
No, you see, this is my point.
I like the honesty. Listen, I don't agree. I like your honesty. I just view it. I'm just sitting here as an outsider thinking, I hear all your points about why you're going to criticize him. But the logic that because he's captain, even when he hasn't had a bad game, if the team has, he has to be crucified. It should dictate in the other direction, but
no, of course not.
I'm going
to go, but I'm going to say this. The reason why I'm triggered by this is because when I see 11 players on the pitch and I see 4 or 5 players that have worse performances than the captain, and the captain picks up an assist and he helps us actually get the opening goal, I look at these guys and I say, Why are you guys always on his case?
Yeah, do you know it's funny? This comment here for one of our members is so funny. It's like either sack him or he's going to be immortalized. But Arsenal fans do seem to be in that space. It's like literally in the space of the next 3 Champions League games, certain players might be literally could be despised forever or immortalized in the space of a. It's such a strange dichotomy based on a couple of games. You don't normally see that with a lot of teams. You don't. Cheers, mate. A comment. This is an interesting comment for me. This is from I know Tez. He says, Terry, make sure you don't make any excuses when they go out to PSG, considering they are running this priorities nonsense. Well, PSG are also running priorities. They haven't played their strongest team in their game, so that equals it out. However, what do you mean no excuses? If they play badly, I'll say they play badly. If they play well but get beat by a better team, that's what I'll say. If PSG are really bad and miss 100 chances and Arsenal smash and grab it, I'll call it a smash and grab. I'll criticize them. However, I'll be honest with you, I don't have Arsenal as favourites. So I'm also going to take that into consideration. The same as, I have them as favourites to win the game at the Emirates, of course. The same as I have Inter as the favourites to win the whole tournament. So them going out in the semi-finals for me is a bigger shock than Arsenal. But yeah, I'll criticise Arsenal if they're bad. I always do. Go back and look at the way I criticised Arsenal. Go back at the way I criticised Arsenal at the end of January. Come on now. The problem is with a lot of you, man, and I know a lot of my members get annoyed when I respond to the trolls, but you know what? You're here. You've taken your time out of your life to come and listen to us. You guys conveniently ignore the volumes of times that I've criticized Arsenal because it doesn't suit your agenda. And games like today, well, why aren't you going in on them? Well, because the other day I defended Tottenham and Man United in exactly the same situation. It would be hypocritical to treat Arsenal in a completely different way. It's just not what I like to do. Personally.
Wait,
so,
do you also think Spurs and United lost because they were focusing on?
No, I didn't say we lost because of it. I simply said that I don't think Man United or Spurs finding some league form is necessarily going to help them in the Europa League.
Really. I think unlike you and Arsenal, you guys are already.
No, but it's the logic remains the same. Like I don't think if Arsenal turned up tonight and battered Palace 5-0. That doesn't indicate they're going on to win it. I just think I think there's no correlation and causation in those things because Arsenal, I know they're second in the league, but they have been a completely different animal in Europe this season by and large to the Premier League. Man United, listen, I'm not trying to tempt fate here. I'm just pointing out the facts. The only unbeaten team in the whole of European competition all season. And the manager of Man United explained why. He just says in Europe, so far, we haven't come up against teams that have been more powerful than us. In the Premier League, it's almost every game the team's more powerful than we are. That's our biggest Achilles heel at the moment, and putting the ball in the back of the net, of course. So I just feel that Man United beating Wolves doesn't mean we'll beat Bilbao. Losing to Wolves doesn't mean we'll lose to Bilbao. I wanted to beat Wolves, but I don't think it's an indicator about what's going to happen against Bilbao. And we've seen that with Arsenal all year. Arsenal have drawn 13 games. We've seen them drop so many points in the league this year, but be practically flawless in every single Champions League game, barely conceding goals, scoring lots more. So for me, I'm just going based on this season, taking a result like tonight and saying it's an indicator of a guarantee. All we're seeing again here are the sort of that people are putting their bets in so they can have a sort of safe prophecy brag, which is, I'm going to say that tonight is an indicator that they'll lose. Well, they might lose to PSG anyway because PSG are a fucking good team. But tonight, I don't think has any bearing. Some people will bring it back to tonight and go, yeah, it does, because they want to shit on Arsenal a little bit more. But in reality, we all know that tonight's game, whether they won 5-0 or lost 5-0, I don't think it's going to have any fucking bearing at all, really.
I'm shameless, Terry. I'm going.
I know you are.
I'm going to claim this prophecy.
If you use the evidence that's in front of you, right, over the past 2 years, these are the kind of games that have cost Arsenal in terms of winning the league, right?
Yeah,
but in terms of Arsenal playing big teams or the so-called big teams, our record's been pretty flawless, really. I can't remember the last time.
Your big game record is active here. Says Terry, one breath Arsenal have been completely different in the Champions League, but you're not even saying they're the favourites because let's be real. Barca, Inter, and PSG. PSG after the first 4 or 5 league games, and then the other 2 have also been phenomenal. And I've spoken about this, okay? All 4 of those teams in more recent years have far more experience of being in this stage of Champions Leagues, getting to finals, winning the tournament as an example.
And the managers too.
Managers, the club, the fans, the whole thing. So just because I'm saying that Arsenal have been a different beast in the Champions League compared to the Premier League doesn't mean I have to make them favourites. Again, there is a distinction there. Secondly, when I put Arsenal about 6 games into the league phase, I put Arsenal was, I think, the 5th or 6th favourite. And it may not have been you active, but the amount of people that laughed and went, no chance are they above, they're now in the final 4. So even when I put them, no matter what I say about Arsenal, the people that hate Arsenal, the people that are scared of Arsenal, the people that fear Arsenal, they're never going to accept anything that's said. So I say they're 6th or 7th favourites, which I don't think's like a compliment. No chance. They're lower than that. Now I'm saying they're not the favourites. That's a problem. Which is it now? Come on, people. Come on.
What else I think as well? What else makes PSG such a tough game? Not just because of their experience in this stage of the Champions League, not because also they've got a top manager who's been there and done it before, but their desperation to win this competition. Like, they win their league every single year. They've always been desperate ever since they had their new owners come in to win the Champions League. Whereas we're desperate to win the Champions League because it's the only thing we're fighting for. But are we that makes it even more of a tougher game? Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Primetime Party here says, do priorities mean excusing players switching off mentally? Doesn't mean you excuse them. Excusing something and understanding why it happens are not the same thing. So I know that if I give my kids a little bit too much sugar too late in the evening when they're tired, they get naughty, right? If my son gets naughty and throws something at my daughter's head, I don't excuse it and say, it's okay, I gave him a chocolate bar. He gets in trouble, but I understand why it happened. That, again, is the distinction. People keep saying the word excuse is being completely misconstrued and sort of almost repositioned within football. It's like people are trying to like migrate the meaning of the word within the football context. An excuse, no, an excuse. It doesn't excuse what Saliba did, but the reason that I think is that they weren't completely switched on. And then Active says, Terry, don't you think it's harder to play under pressure when you're expected to win? And listen, there is some teams that crumble under pressure, but at the same time, it depends on how that pressure impacts you. Okay, so I think a lot of people that perform best in their jobs in general life, right across the board, when there's a little bit of pressure of, if I don't turn up on time, if I don't deliver my targets, if I don't behave in a certain way, dress to the standards, I'll lose my job. It does create better performance by and large in people. If it's a case of you can turn up when you want, it doesn't matter if you hit your targets or not, you will generally see people get worse and worse at their jobs. And I saw that when I worked at a certain bank. This new MD came in. Oh, this is great. I loved it. He came in and he went around to all the branches, boys. You should have seen this fucker. Absolute, like nepotism. Got the job because his dad was a special person. Kind of went around the branches like, yeah. He spoke like he was in the 80s. It was like, he goes, I've got an idea, guys. I've got an idea. And you're going to love it. You're going to love it, right? What we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the targets for all the staff. So what do you mean, mate? No one is going to have any targets to achieve. What do you mean? We're all shocked. He went, well, the cashiers don't need to book a certain amount of appointments. It doesn't matter how much money they lose or overtake from customers on their tills. The personal bankers, okay, listen, they haven't got to hit £50,000 of lending a week. They've got to open a certain amount of accounts. There's no targets. What's going to happen is they're going to be so relaxed, okay? They're going to be so relieved of pressure, because we all hate pressure, don't we? But they're going to fly. They're going to deliver. They are going to hit numbers like we have never seen before. And we all sat there and just went, this ain't going to fucking work, right? But we introduced it. We put it out. 6 weeks in, right? Staff are sitting around picking their asses, not pushing for work, right? No one's selling anything. No one's doing any lending, right? And I remember we got this big email 6 weeks in, emergency meeting. We need you all in regional office first thing Monday morning. It turned up. And they were basically like, yeah, you know, Emmett, I was like, yeah, he's gone, right? They got rid of him. They sacked him. They went and let the staff know targets are coming back and they're coming back soon. So when you really, I just remember I was quite a young member of management at the time, and we all just went, but there has to be targets. We struggled to get some of the fuckers to try and hit their targets now, taking it away. I was like, the management had no power anymore because you can't say someone's underperforming. There has to be targets. And yeah, so for me, some people do crumble if the pressure's too much for them. I agree. There is no one size fits all, but there has to be a bit of jeopardy. I think there has to be a bit of pressure for people to deliver in life. If everything was just given to you, I don't know. I don't think it works. I don't think it works personally. So yeah, great questions, but no, you need that pressure, I think. But yeah, Emmett, I always wonder where Emmett is now. I always wonder where he is. I don't know. He'll be all right, though. His dad was rich. His dad had a good job. So there we go. Boys, I want to thank you all for coming on the show. Actually, we've got a super chat here. Sorry. 2 players know exactly what their manager wants on the pitch. Odegaard and Jorginho. They lead on the pitch. No one else is close. Is here.
That's a bold statement.
That just triggered Connor.
That's a bold statement. Fair play,
Gary, do you know what's funny about this Odegaard thing? Do you know that it's the same thing at City? We all City fans say KDB is not an actual captain. We say, no offense, like KDB has done so much for the team, but we still see, if you go on that page, it looks like Ruben Diaz and Rodri are more of the captains that actually sometimes lead. KDB is incredible. Yeah. This is the thing about other people. I think they think that just because you are the good ball-looking guy on the pitch who can slice the ball in a certain way, oh, that's the guy who wants to be captain. No, because for me, if you talk about this Champions League, it looks like Rice, Partey, and Gabriel have been the ones carrying the troops, as leader-wise and everything. Why Odegaard, unfortunately, like, I don't hate the guy because I thought that's the next KDB, by the way, seasons ago, until someone told me to behave. I just feel like he doesn't have that ability to, it doesn't show. I don't know. I don't want to use the word aura because it's for these kids these days, the aura or whatever you call it.
Don't touch his aura, mate. You'll get in trouble. Abdullah here says, anyone who thinks we're going to beat PSG without our best midfielder, you are delusional. Thomas is the best midfielder in his position after Rodri. Yeah, that's a big miss. There's no doubt about that. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a very, very hard.
But hey, we've got Jorginho, and he's our second best leader, so he will be all right.
There we go. There we go.
We'll be all right.
Top 3 in the Ballon d'Or a couple of years ago. Maybe he can pull that out the bag. Listen, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in. This is going to redirect you to El Halwa on Hassam's channel. I butchered saying it, but that's what it's called. So go and support my brother over there. I want to thank you, gentlemen. I want to thank the super chatters, our members, and everyone who's hit the like button. We're back tomorrow with Fan Channel Review, the Top 6 show. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again. Hang on a second. Let me just check, make sure the redirect's been done. It has. And we'll see you all soon. Peace.